We're talking about the worldwide organized fast food workers strike. I don't know if anybody happened to walk by any of the picket lines yesterday. I spent all of yesterday, or if it was yesterday, was it yesterday or Wednesday? Maybe it was Wednesday, but I didn't get to see any of it. Maybe somebody could call in if you happened to witness one of these picket lines or maybe even talked to one of the strikers. But they're trying to get $15 an hour instead of the minimum wage, which I'm sure a lot of them make. Not, some of them probably make a little bit more than minimum wage, but minimum wage approximately for a lot of these jobs. And so Bob Beckel, not only is he defending the strikers and their demands of $15 an hour, he doesn't think it's enough. He actually thinks they should get more than $15 an hour, even though, of course, he doesn't employ any of these people himself. He just thinks other people should pay their employees more, even though he doesn't pay his employees anything because he doesn't have any employees. But listen to the first of these two cuts. It's cut number one.
Completely. I think, frankly, $15 is a little bit low. But, look, they're doing work. They can't. Just think about it this way, if you would. If they're getting paid an average of $8, whatever it is, $8.85, a 40-hour work week, you cannot support a family of four. You're in poverty. If that's the case, then that means that you're working at a job that generates poverty.
So according to Bob Beckel, he believes that if you get a job cooking French fries at McDonald's, that you should be able to support a wife who stays at home and who does not work and two kids. What is he, nuts? So does anybody think that if they marry a fry cook that they don't have to work? I mean, if your husband or wife cooks French fries, you're working too. You're not staying at home, right? I mean, this is ridiculous. These are entry-level jobs. He said, well, if you work at McDonald's and you're a fry cook, you can't afford to support a family. Duh. Of course you can't afford to support a family. It's not the type of job that somebody who is supporting a family is supposed to have. But, see, here's what Bob Beckel doesn't understand. If you ever want to support a family, you got to get started in the labor market somewhere. Before you can make enough money to support a family, you got to make some money. Before you can get a good, high-paying job, you got to start out at a low-paying job. You start at the bottom, and you work your way up. And when you've worked your way high enough, that's when you pop the question to your girl or guy or girl, and, hey, I'm now making enough money, I can afford to get married, and then when you're making some more money, have some kids. But to say, I got my first job at McDonald's, now I want to get married and have a couple of kids, and oh, by the way, this paycheck is inadequate because I can't support my family, so I demand a raise. No, you want a raise? Get a better job. That's how you get a raise. You want to support a family on the money you earn at McDonald's? Then be the manager of that McDonald's. Open up your own franchise. Wait until you can earn enough money. But what happens is if you say, well, the only jobs that should exist, McDonald's shouldn't give anybody a job unless they can support a family of four on their paycheck, then none of these jobs will exist. That is the problem. That is something that Bob Beckel doesn't understand because he doesn't think with his head. He thinks with his heart. He just thinks it's unfortunate. It's not McDonald's fault that people are trying to raise a family on jobs meant for teenagers. Now, what Bob Beckel doesn't understand is the reason that so many people can't get better jobs is because of all the government policies that have made it so expensive to hire people. All the regulations and taxes in the name of liberalism, in the name of helping workers, have backfired and destroyed the job opportunities that used to exist in this country. That's not McDonald's fault. They're doing what they've always done, provide entry-level jobs. The problem is other companies aren't providing the better jobs for people to move up to. And the question is why? And Bob Beckel doesn't even want to consider why. But here's where it gets real crazy. Because, there's always the argument. People will say, well, if you think the minimum wage is good, if you think $15 is good, why not $100? And the idea is if you say that, then the person is going to say, well, that's too high, obviously. there'll be unemployment at 100. And then you say, well, what about 50? You make it absurd to prove your point. Well, somebody tried to do that with Bob Beckel, and it backfired. And guess why? Have a listen. Cut number 2.
By the way, if your logic held, you said that's not high enough, you will never be happy with how high minimum wage is. So why not make it $100 an hour?
That's fine.
$100 an hour. There you go.
Let's see right there. Bob says $100.
I think if you put $15 an hour in people's pocket, they'll spend money, and the CBO is going to be proved wrong.
So, in other words, Bob Beckel said $100 an hour is fine. That's fine. So you can't even argue with the guy when you say $100 an hour, and Bob Beckel says, yeah, I'd support that. That's fine. $100 an hour? Does Bob Beckel know what that is? What $100 an hour is? That's over $200,000 a year. He's fine with a law that requires McDonald's to pay their fry cooks $200,000 a year. And Bob Beckel says that's fine. How is that fine? How many fry cooks would get hired if they had to be paid $200,000 a year? None. These restaurants would be fully automated or they'd go out of business. There's not many businesses in America that would have employees if the minimum wage was $100 an hour. In fact, a minimum wage of $100 an hour would destroy the very concept of employee. Nobody would be an employee. Nobody could get a job. Everybody would be self-employed. And in fact, if you look at some of the countries in Europe that have much higher minimum wages, that's what you find. You find you have a very significant percentage of the population that is self-employed. Why? Because they can't get a job, because it's illegal to employ them. So they have to employ themselves. See, if you hire yourself, there is no minimum wage. You earn what you earn. So if you work for yourself and you earn $5 an hour, well, that's okay with the government. But you can't work for somebody else and be paid $5 an hour. But if you pay yourself $5 an hour, in that if you're self-employed and you're effectively earning $5 an hour, that's okay. So you can pay yourself as little as you want, but just somebody else can't pay you below the minimum wage. So what happens is the higher the minimum wage, the more people who are forced to employ themselves than try to be employed by somebody else. But unfortunately, many people would be better off employed by other people because they would make more money. But because they can't make as much money as what a government might demand. And again, it's not just a wage that's mandated. If somebody else hires you, they've got to give you all sorts of other benefits, maybe medical leave, family leave, time and a half, or they've got to provide you a stress-free environment, non-discrimination, all this stuff. But if you employ yourself, you don't have to give yourself anything. You don't have to provide yourself any benefits, nothing. So, unfortunately, that's what a lot of people have to do because the government has made it too expensive for somebody else to hire them, so they have to do it themselves. We're talking the minimum wage law. And, I was just reading a story about how McDonald's just purchased 7,000 kiosks. These are like little ATM machines where people will insert their debit card or credit card to pay for their purchases rather than having a cashier ring it up. Of course, why are they doing this? To reduce their costs, to eliminate the labor and substitute it for a machine. Pretty soon, fast food restaurants will not have people. I mean, that's just a foregone conclusion. I mean, look, first of all, they already eliminated the waiter. I mean, part of the experience at a fast food restaurant is there's no waiter, right? You don't go to McDonald's, sit at a table, and a waiter doesn't show up and take your order and then bring the food to your table, right? You serve yourself. You line up, you get the food, and then you take it to the table yourself, right? You're not waited on by a person. And by eliminating the waiter, the cost of the food is lower. So the waiters were eliminated a long time ago. Now we have to eliminate the cashiers, the order takers, right, and the cooks. And that's coming. Why do you need a person to take your order? Why can't you just type it in to a computer screen? Or maybe they have voice recognition software now. You just speak your order into a microphone and a machine gets it and it sends it to a computer or a robot that puts together your order. Because remember, there's not that many things in fast food. There's only a few menu items. This is not like, an extravagant meal. They can have machines and computers. I saw on Zero Hedge a robot in Japan that makes burgers, right? But it's not going to be hard to automate. I mean, what do they got? You got shakes, a couple of flavors. You got fries. You got burgers. I mean, it's not that big a deal. So pretty soon, all it's going to be is you type or speak into a voice recognition. There's some computers and robots that prepare the meal. They come down some kind of a chute, and you grab it, you swipe your card, and then you're off to your table, and you clean it up yourself or whatever, and that's it. Why do they need to be people there? They will look just like self-serve gas stations. There might be one person there in case there's a problem, right? That's it. All the other jobs will be gone, and what a shame that's going to be. Because most people would prefer to interact with other human beings than machines. But what people really prefer is low prices. That's what the self-serve gas station shows. As much as they'd prefer human interaction, there's a limit to what they can spend, especially when you have a decline in your standard of living, prices are going up, your income is falling, you need a cheap meal. And even though you'd prefer to have personal service, you can't afford it anymore. It's our declining standard of living. But now all these job opportunities are gone. So how are the young people going to get into the labor market? Where's their first job going to come from? How are they going to get some experience? They're not. That is the problem.